I left real estate for about 20 years and then had a corporate career in retail management, home furnishings, traditional retail, and was in essence a casualty of COVID. So I relicensed in August of 2020. My first year of business, closed 22 transactions, moved over to KW, started a group this year. Most of my business early on was all buy. Towards the end of my first year, started to pick up listings. I would say at this point, we're probably running 70% buyers, 30% sellers. And again, I've heard a couple of people mention that there's some things that we're doing to really work on bringing about a little bit more of a balance in that mix. But I would say to everyone that is a buyer's agent, it's definitely something to be proud of, regardless of how hard this market is. There's room there for you and your buyer, and hopefully today we'll be able to share with you some great takeaways to help give you some more power doing that.
Okay, I'm going to throw a question at all of you, and please, who's ever comfortable, answer. Michael, you alluded to systems and models, and Ron, you alluded to certain things you do to get offers accepted. Please share. That's what we need to hear. What are you doing that's making it work?
Who wants to go?
Start at the end, work our way down.
Okay, I'll start. I think one of the things that we've changed really since the beginning of this year is how we are consulting with the buyer and making sure that we have a financial strategy, as well as sort of the buyer's wish list. And when I say financial strategy, I think we are having a deeper conversation around a buyer's funds. What does their down payment look like? What's their closing cost going to look like? What are they working with so that we can figure out whether or not this is a buyer that may have the funds to handle something like lender required repairs, or to contribute to an appraisal shortfall, or potentially has a large enough down payment that we can have a lender pre-approve them to waive an appraisal. But I think going through the financials in addition to the consultation allow us to build the right strategy. There are definitely certain towns, there are certain price points where certain buyers will be more competitive. And that is whether they are FHA or conventional or VA. So I think just using knowledge of really a multiple county market, having these conversations and more importantly, doing that financial education with a new buyer has helped us streamline their strategy. We know when to write an offer and really how to make them the most competitive that they can be. So we may not be writing as many offers for a given buyer, but the offers that we write are really the best that buyer can do in a market we feel like they can be the most competitive in.
So I think, Kristen, you did have some killer points there, right? So what I heard there was it's about the pre-screen. It starts at the pre-screen, right? And I cannot stress that enough, right? That's where I saw a difference as well. And to me, sometimes the pre-screen actually ends up in a, I'm sorry, I can't work with you right now. Yeah, and it's because we've gone through that full list, right? And there's other times when it says, okay, I can work with you under these conditions, and here's the strategy, you mentioned strategy, so that we have to do this. Does this align? Do our strategies align, right? We don't work for free, right? If a contractor is going to come and work at your house, they're going to have an outlined list of these are the things that we're going to do, and we're going to accomplish it by this time, and everyone signs off on it, right? It's similar to what we do. My goal is to do this, but my goal is to show you these type of properties in these towns with this price range. Does that work for you? Right. But one thing I'd like to add to that is, you talked about being able to buy, right? Pre-approval. I don't show anyone a house without a pre-approval, and I even go one step past that and make sure they're pre-qualified with our lenders. Two, are you ready? Yes. I'm moving. I need to get my son or daughter to school by September. I need to buy by June 30th. I need you to help me get there. And the last piece I want to add is, are you willing? Do you have the guts to get to the finish line? You know, and that's where we start to talk about what's different in this market that's different than when they last bought, or they know someone else that just bought 5 years ago. 100%.
You know, we always have like an A buyer in today's market is not the same definition as it used to be. The definition of an A buyer used to be somebody that's ready, willing, and able to buy. Yet that's not the definition of an A buyer in today's market. The definition of an A buyer in today's market is ready, willing, and able and willing to do whatever it takes. So that last part he just mentioned, willing, they have to be willing to do whatever it takes to, we're talking the strength of offer. It's a very competitive market. So you have two options as a buyer, you can compete or go next. Now the pre-qualifying part is it's fundamental if you don't want to waste your time. Because there's one thing that you'll discover about buyers and the public, consumers, they have no problem wasting more time. So we're going to pre-qualify them. That's the way that we know how much time, energy, and effort to be spending on them to their points. Beyond that, we're going to set the expectations. We're going to prepare them best they can for what lies ahead. And it's not just one initial conversation. We're going to repeat ourselves over and over and over again. And we're going to be the leaders in those relationships. They're not looking for a friend. They're looking for an advisor. They're looking for a leader, for something to guide them through this process called the buying process. Too often, I think we're there to try and become their friends. It's not our job to show them every single home. I always tell every single buyer's agent, our job is not to show them every single home. Our job is to show them the right ones. And there's one way that we can do it. We can do it with the buyer consultation, what Chris was alluding to. It's a tool for us to discover exactly what they're looking for, so we can take them right to what they're looking for, so we don't have to waste our time or their time. Wouldn't that be helpful to us and them? Wouldn't that be advantageous to us and them? Wouldn't that benefit us and them? Yeah, well, many agents just don't do buyer consultations. Okay, so that just means that you're willing to spend a little bit more time, a little more energy, a little bit of effort in accomplishing what you're looking to accomplish, and that's okay. I'm not gonna say it's right or wrong. I'm saying there's a better way. If you're looking to work less, make more, know exactly how much time, effort, and energy you're spending on your clients, pre-qualify them, do a buyer consultation, do a very good needs analysis, get feedback, and that will limit your your time wasting.
But sometimes what I feel is half the time the buyer consult could be not sitting in an office or a conference room, but at the house itself. So yeah, you look at the listings online together, whether you pre-screen them, they've sent it to you, and they said, oh, we need a master bedroom with a tub and whatever the criteria is. Sometimes you get to the house and you just listen at the spot, and you pick up things, like let them talk, okay? So you got them there, like whether like I said, they sent it to you, said, oh, this, it's on a busy street, whatever it is, but you got them to the house. Listen at the house, because what you could pick up will transpire to the next time you go out. And it's not, while I totally agree with, pre-screen and all this stuff, sometimes you show your worth at the house, because like you might know that house. Try to get to the houses if you can. Like it used to be different before COVID. We'd have broker tours. Around here it's Wednesday.
100%.
You would go and see all the inventory. This way, when someone said, hey, did you see the house on? Yeah, I did. And they'd be like, wow. Like now it's like you're kind of learning together when you get to the house. And that doesn't translate to like, yeah, I know everything about the house. So what you can do on the back end is pull up the seller's disclosure. Know about, get to learn about the house before you get there. I know it's tedious. And if you go into 8 houses, although are there 8 houses even on the market? I don't know. But if you
That don't have accepted offers.
Exactly. When you get to the house and you say, you know what, this is good value, the roof is young, the heating system's young, they'll be like, wow, you really know something about the house. And they'll be like, don't want to work with you, because there's 8,500 agents in Bergen County. You have to show your worth. So if you're, I'm not saying maybe that's the way they do a pre-screen. I'll pre-screen to a point. I give people the benefit of the doubt maybe too often. And I'll say, you know what, let's get out there and see, because they want to put an offer. And then sometimes it's like, I got to write 5 offers and they got to keep losing. So then you'll see, are they in it? Like it's not for them, or they're like, I want the next one. Now they realize that sometimes it takes a losing effort to put forth a stronger one to the next time.
Absolutely.
Jump in.
I love what everyone is saying. Ron has actually said to me before, because I was asking how he converts at such a high level, and he was like, know your market. If you really know the market, not just the housing inventory, but the good restaurants, the quality of the schools. I mean, people are spending a lot of money with you. How much time are you putting into understanding your market? Especially now, if you're starting out, are you spending an hour creating a search? Are you calling your clients ahead of time to say, hey, this came up in your search, I think that this would be a great property? Or are you waiting for them to say, hey, I saw the email today along with the 7 other agents that sent it, and I chose to pick you to call to see if you could show it to me? You have to be very proactive in this market to show your value. You also have to be willing to ask the hard questions and ask them early. The pre-screening is is the way it's supposed to be done, right? You're supposed to have a buyer consult, get in here and really understand. But like Tom was saying, you don't always have that opportunity, right? Somebody wants to see something quickly, you get a quick conversation. But at what point are you willing to ask the hard questions? Are you asking them to be a highly qualified, motivated buyer? How many times do you have to be a loser before you become a winner? I use it all the time, it's sarcastic, but no one likes to lose all the time. When do they start attributing their loss to your incompetence of guiding them and pushing them? So many times we want to be nice. It's not our money that we're spending, right? It's not our money. So let me just paint the scenario. You were nice to your client. You felt like a year ago he shouldn't offer or she shouldn't offer a certain number because they were overpaying. And then what happened? Now they're really overpaying. So now you did one of two things. You were unaware of what was trending in your market, right? Or you were just too afraid to have the hard conversation. So are you willing to waive your appraisal? Are you willing to limit your inspection? Are you willing to be flexible on your closing? Are you willing to do a lease back once you close so that the seller has time to find a place to go? If you're not having that conversation with your buyer, you're doing a complete disservice to them. And even more importantly, you were mentioning FHA, VA buyers, right? Your buyers that have 3.5% down or 5% down, or your VA who's 100% financed, right? Are you telling them that you should come back in 2025 so we can buy a house for you, right? Or are you guiding them to say, okay, so let's talk about this market. You want to offer what you think it's worth. Well, there are 10 other people in line with 20% down or 50% down or cash. So does that mean that you're going to have to buy for more if you want to be considered? Because your letter isn't going to cut it, right? Your sweet picture of your family and your dog. It's right.
We don't do that here.
Yeah, you don't do it. I know, no one does it. I list a ton and I get a ton of letters, right? I'm telling you from my perspective, I'm looking at 13 offers. I get the letters, I get to this, I get to that. And they're like, they really want it to keep losing. And I'm like, there's a reason they keep losing. You have to be willing to have the hard conversation. And that would be like the only thing I want to add to that. All right.
So go ahead, what he said.
I was just gonna say, I think JP touched on something. It's not about being nice, it's not about being good, it's about being right. And sometimes right is also knowing when to tell them to walk. There are some bad properties out there for sale. They're in terrible locations. They are gonna be riddled with issues when this market cools off. And as much as somebody wants something, I think you also have to know when to say no. There's an emotional frenzy that can start. You have to be an emotional one. This isn't a business for emotion, frankly. It is, somebody said before, large and financial. The less emotion, the better. But knowing your market, I think knowing when to say no and knowing to be right. And that's from everything from the time you have, the conversations you have, to the way that you show and present property. And again, I'm just reiterating what you guys have said, being proactive. If you think that this is a passive side of the transaction, it's not. Searches are great, but they're basically there for the one day that you're too busy to pick up the phone or for weigh in. It shouldn't be the way you run your business.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Sure.
So you're setting up your searches. We're all doing it and you have to do it. Okay. And I try to encourage my buyer agents to do this as well. Sometimes there's nothing to talk about, right? Sometimes you're looking and nothing's coming up. Do you call your buyers when that's happening? Just to touch base and say, hey, I'm here. I don't see anything that's of value here. Or God, did you see that horrible property come to market? Just to create rapport. Is that something you do? And how are you creating that rapport with your buyers? That's the question I want to pose to the panel.
You have to.
It's simple. I think you just hit the nail on the head. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. Some weeks when you know, it's just that 2-minute check-in. Like, I'm here. Do you know what I mean? I see what you see. That doesn't mean that we aren't looking. Means the world. I think more times than not, clients are just grateful to know what's happening, even if what's happening is nothing at the moment.
Would that
and
be
it's
an
just-
opportunity to maybe expand their horizons? Sometimes they come to you with a certain set, I want this, 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 and this, and it's up to the realtor to kind of expand Maybe
Definitely.
geography and or style.
That's the strategy already. Now we've come up with the strategy, we're actually creating the paths for them, or we can present the path to them. So when I say communicating strategy, okay, this is what you're looking for. What we can do to increase likelihood to help you arrive at the outcome you're looking for is we can do this. We can look at properties that have been on the market for more than 30 days. Those are likely the overpriced ones. I'll tell you how much they're overpriced by, or we can expand our search criteria, expand the number of towns that we're going to go see. That'll expand your options. And then it may increase the likelihood will help you arrive at the outcome you're looking. So we're creating the strategies, we're creating the path for them, and they'll have to choose. And I always use the analogy that Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're the driver, I'm the navigation system. I'm going to help you arrive at your destination. And if you happen, and I'm going to tell you which way to go, but if you want to skip a turn, that's okay. I'm going to recalculate, but ultimately, I'm going to get you to your final destination.
I like
So
that.
I'm communicating the strategy to them, creating the paths for them. They get to choose.
And it's a winning strategy that you're going after, right? So in my business, I like to say, hey, I'm the head coach. Okay, you're the quarterback, right? We have an offensive coach, which is the lender, and a defensive coach, which is the inspector, right? That's my team. You don't want to work with my team. Maybe I'm not the right person for you, but I win. And I say it just like that. Because a lot of times I'll get a pre-approval letter come through, and I don't want to say any bad names to anybody, but the difference, if you have a loan, the difference is who's on your team, right? And, some of the guys here, we also take listings, right? When you see a pre-approval letter come through from these lenders, you're like, oh, well, have they done their job?
100%, yeah.
Right, and I know going in the strength of my buyer, and I also know that I don't have to have that tough conversation. I'm not here to tell my buyer no. I'm here to say, okay, pick up the phone, let's talk with your lender, let's have a conference call. Okay, run the scenario at 600,000. Okay, are they good? Yes, they're good. Run it at 750. No, they're not good. Okay, run it at 500. Yeah, they're good. Right, and I start to give them boundaries, because as we know, going into listings, especially multi-bid, I'm going to tell you, listen, to win, we got to be here. I'm not the bad guy, right? I'm just saying, if you want to win, this is how we're going. A lot of us lose on price and terms, right? And anyone that's lost a multi-bid offer this year,
Everyone should raise your hand.
I mean, that would be all,
Yeah, if we're
right?
out there.
right? And then on that, right, if you do lose, right, you either win or you learn. There's no losing, right? So I try to get feedback from that agent. Why didn't we get top pick? And I give that to the person. Hey, there were 8 offers in, we were 8th. We came in at asking.
What's your secret sauce at the negotiating table? You've all kind of alluded to it already, but what do you do? How do you make the seller or the listing agent? You don't always have the opportunity to dialogue with the seller. But
I'll go first, because I do a lot of listing, right? And I will tell you that there's a big difference. The buyer agents that win are on the phone constantly with the listing agent. They're asking, where are the offers? Where do I need to be? Sometimes I'm like, I'll tell you, the truth is that if you're advocating for your seller and you understand how to drive price up, there is a certain amount of that you share, even in a highest and best. And I'm disclosing this. I typically get permission from my seller, but I ask my sellers, do you want me to use the strategy that I've been doing to get the highest offer for you? Or do you just want me to play it completely square and make it all blind? Certain people are comfortable in the box. Certain people are like, no, I need you to be outside of the box because I really want to leverage as much as we can. I do a lot of leveraging for my sellers. And if you're not calling the listing agent and asking that question, and some agents are like, I'm sorry, I can't disclose. If they have their own buyer involved, they're certainly not going to disclose. And I respect that. I want that seller, that listing agent to feel like they're going to win as well. But I feel like we're always getting. Is it just when I'm talking?
No, I'm just
I'm really a ventriloquist. On that, there's always an outlier. I say, if you don't know in that market, for example, let me just say, Ron tells me he knows his market, right? If he goes to sell in a different town, and he doesn't know that typically these offers are coming in 10 or 15% above list, right? And his buyer thinks, I'm getting a full list, I'm great. If you don't know what that percentage is, like how that market is trending in that town. Like I know in New York, we can price per square foot. I know that a year ago, houses used to sell for $225 a square foot. And now they're going between $250 and $300 a square foot in that market. Are you the outlier? Are you the one like, oh, I love it when I get all these agents that are like, well, I've run the comps and I think we're gonna come in a little bit above that. And then I'll get a bulk of offers in a certain price range. And then you get the cowboy, you get the Wild Wild West agent that's like, psst, I'm gonna do 60,000 above that. We're gonna win, we're gonna win. And they win. And that confidence from that agent being able to impart that to their buyers, like, look, this is where all the offers are gonna come in. You could do it. Maybe they'll smile on you, or maybe you just go in and you win, right? And then people will be like, well, you did a disservice to your buyer. And I always say, the disservice is never getting them a home to buy. That's the real disservice, because eventually they will give up on you. You may not give up on them, but I can't tell you how many phone calls I get. God, I can't win an offer. I'm coming to you. You gotta get me something. And we put it in and we get it done. So be mindful of knowing the trend in your market, knowing that if this area is selling for 10 to 15% above and it's trending upward, you need to be above that. And if you don't know it, no one's working 8 hours a day here right now as a buyer agent, a full 8 hours a day. You should be doing some studying. You should know your market that well wherever you're selling so that you can properly advise your buyer. Or, I'm sorry.
So speaking of studying,
I do work 8 hours more than
Oh, I bet you do. But you're the exception here.
How do you convince the buyer to go to that number you need them to go to win?
You trust it.
The question is, how do you
Okay, so-
convince the buyer to be
I'll-
aggressive?
Yeah.
yeah, so, John Paul just mentioned about studying the market, okay? What we can study in the market is what's on the market and what has sold in the market. But you can't study the under contracts, right? So this is how I do it, right? Is we make relationships, introduce yourself. Don't be a quiet agent at the KW meetings. Go out to the regional meetings. Meet all the top listing agents. Introduce yourself, get to know them. And it's not just because we're putting offers on their listings, which they are, right? But I call them to consult them. And they pick up the phone. Oh, hey, Mike. Yeah, hey, that house you just saw, 123 Main. Did you see the 1-2 blocks up from it just came on the market? Yeah, I didn't get that listing. Oh, you didn't? What happened? All of a sudden, I know what's going on. Okay. Well, tell me how you did on your under contract. We had 15 over. We had 15 offers. How'd it go? Oh, we went X dollars. Okay, now I have a
It's the
tool,
greatest advice.
right?
Calling your
So,
under contracts.
because
That's
the under contracts
great
take 60 days to close, we need to be in the market today. We can't look at the market 60 days ago. And these guys know, I've called them all before on advice. You may not even realize it, but I've spoken to you about it.
From a buyer perspective, though, to answer the question, I think sometimes it just takes losing. Like you might not go high enough, and the people have to say, like, okay, we didn't go high enough. The worst question people are asking, I think me right now anyway, I'm sure all you guys, how high should we go? I say, it's not my money. I was like, you have to go as high as you are comfortable losing it. Like if you say, I'm not going over, if it's 550, I'm not going over 580, goes over 580, we didn't get it. So there has to be a comfort level, I think, with the buyer, where they're like, shoot, I just missed, or I'll try again,
I want
They
to touch
say
your point, Tom.
if you lose by $1,
Yeah.
you go to sleep at night. One of the seasoned agents told me that if you make that offer and you lose it by $1,
You're not upset.
you could be like, I did everything I could. Because I will tell you right now, how many people have gotten an accepted offer. The next day, the listing agent calls you, said, listen, we did highest and best, but an offer came in 50,000 over. And now you have to go back to your buyer who just had that accepted offer. If the listing agent is nice and gives you the opportunity to match it, now you have to reconvince them to go up another 50, right?
That happens, yeah.
They do it. There are buyers that say, you know what, I want it. You know why? They felt that victory. They felt the rush of the win. And at that point, you're having a conversation that says, hey, that 50 grand or that $40,000 more is gonna cost you $220 a month. Are you willing to lose this property over $220 a month? Most people aren't. Most people can't, that extra 220 is gonna hurt. But most people say, to get the house I really want, yeah, I'll do it. And be prepared with that. Be prepared with that stat to say, look, if you come up, it means it's another 3,000 out of pocket on the down payment, and it's another 150 or 200 a month for your monthly payment. If you can't have that conversation, go study your mortgage calculator and be prepared to have it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Buyers they can relate to the monthly payment. And if you can, bring it down, bring the price down to a monthly payment, they feel they can digest. Do you find that's easier to help you get them up in price?
Well, that's what I was saying about the 50,000, people like, oh, that's 50,000. It's not 50. It's $3,500 down more for your down payment.
Yeah.
That's how you have to make sense of it. It's not 50 grand. It's only 20% or 10% of 50 grand, whatever they're putting down.
But I'll always defer to the go to your lender and see if that's gonna put you in another, lending threshold of 39% or whatever it is.
Very true.
You want to spend their money, without checking on them first.
What were you, Brian wanted to say something, we keep.
Oh, no, just, I think they're not gonna remember everything that we're saying here. I like to simplify things. You said something that was probably the greatest tip that they can probably remember. And if you're going to do one thing to promote your buyer's best interest and increase likelihood you're going to obtain in competitive environments, just do the one thing that he said, pick up the phone. Now, there's a reason I say that, and I say it that simply because it's an easy thing to remember. We have a lot of listings too. We have a lot of multiple offers too. The majority of agents, I would go as high as 9 out of 10 agents, don't pick up the phone.
That's right.
Are those, so the follow-up question is, are those agents promoting their buyer's best interest? The answer is no. Now, on the verse, though, it's not a panel for it, but if the listing agents would also pick up the phone, that'd be nice too.
That's what I was gonna say.
Chris, you've been
So,
patient.
yeah, not everybody picks up the phone. I mean, it's.
Yeah, so there's a follow to that too. Are those listing agents, they promoting their seller's best interest? And I would say the answer is no, because now they can't use the negotiation skills to actually get what they're looking to obtain, just top dollar for their sellers. Different conversation, anyway.
But he's right, though.
Yeah.
You want to add something? Go.
I'll wait.
Go. I'm not
Go,
gonna
Chris,
forget.
go.
I'm not gonna forget.
I think there's just been a couple of points that there's some other conversation to have. You were talking about team, and then Tom, you just brought up the lender as you were talking about pricing. Good lenders now are able to model for a buyer. If they go over by this amount based on a historical improvement in property value, how many years will it take them if they go over to sort of hit a point where the property is worth if they're overpaying? And I think that that's a really compelling thing to see. If I know going up that 50,000 means that I potentially will be waiting 10 months for this property to come back to current market value, and it's only $220 a month and I can afford it, that's an easy decision to make. So your lender partners, your attorney partners, your sports analogy is great, I'm not a football guy, but that was a really good one. It's critical because those lenders have the ability to really impact the conversation as well. And since they're the ones that are ultimately responsible for that financial approval, it's great to have them in kind of as that conversation goes along. I think like the whole dialogue that's happening now about trying to get someone on the phone. Yep, it's frustrating. Is it always going to happen? No, but your routine shouldn't change just because of it. So I will call you 5 times. The 5th time's the last time I call. If you don't pick up, okay, I'm gonna hang my hat on the text that I send. But I do want to bring something back on us as agents, and some of you may think that this is far-fetched. My team is here and they can back this up. Some of this is on the buyer and some of this is on you. Do your paperwork correctly. Do it thoroughly. Include current pre-approvals. Be in front of proof of funds. Anything that listing agent could want or need, give it to them. Give it to them. We have won 4 offers in the last 60 days where we were not the highest. I know we were not the best, just because we gave the agent what they wanted the first time. Period.
That's exactly the point that I was going to make.
Sorry.
No, but I like hearing it from someone else. I was speaking to another agent this morning who won a bidding war only because her paperwork was in. And the seller was like, you know what? It's 5,000 less, but the fact that that agent couldn't even get it together is probably not a seasoned agent and not going to be able to shepherd the deal to the finish line because they're not even submitting a pre-approval with the offer. Think about how crazy that is, and it's happening, right? I just managed a bidding war on a listing in Mawa, and we had $40,000 to $60,000 above list, and the top offer was like, I don't know, it was maybe 10% down and then 20% down, and people were waiving appraisal and limiting inspection, which if you're not doing that, good luck. Okay, and they did it. And then I had to make a decision with my seller to say, you know what, I'm down this list here. I'm looking fourth down on the list. And that buyer's putting 25% down and everyone else is putting only like 10 or 15. I want to call that agent. I want to call that agent and see if I can get that person up to the number that we have, the top number. This is what, if you're doing the right thing as a listing agent, there'd be a point on how you circle it back as a buyer agent. So I called that agent. She said, you know what, give me a minute. I'm going to call my client. I'll get back to you. She gets back to me. I said, okay, now I have two offers that are both the highest, right? And I need to further qualify this. I asked both agents, please send me a bank statement. I want to know that you're waiving appraisal and you can actually cover the appraisal. Because with a 5% down buyer or a 10% down buyer, my gut is that cash is light, right? And so let's just say that the person who was highest first had 80 grand in the bank or 90 grand, and the down payment had to be 65, right? So now if there's a gap in 40 grand there, they're going to empty their entire bank account to cover that appraisal waiver. Are they going to get gift money from the family? How are they going to honor the offer that they gave me, right? The other person who I called, who was fourth on the list, had $500,000 in the bank, liquid, not in their 401k, just in a checking account, ready to rock and roll in this market. And clearly that happened to be a KW agent, okay? That agent won the bid, okay? So what I would implore you to do is, as a buyer agent, if you know that you have a strong financial buyer, include a bank statement when you send your pre-approval. Put your cards on the table if you know that they're strong. And if you know they're strong and you still lose, pick up the phone and say, look, my guy's got a ton of cash in the bank, or my couple has a ton of cash in the bank. Can we make this up? Certain people are like, no, we didn't. That's it. That's all we're ever going to do again. No. Okay. And then there's other people that be like, you know what? Absolutely. You get this number, you show me that money, and we'll make it work. And that's business. That's hustling. That's going the extra mile. What someone says, there's no traffic on the extra mile. Is that the expression?
Yeah.
It's true.
But I think we were talking about that financial qualification as part of the consult, like that's information we'll get. So we want pre-approval, we want proof of funds, like we're looking for that up front, just to avoid having to have the listing agent have to call us. So when we send in the offer and it's got the proof of funds and it's got a current pre-approval, you make it easy for the listing agent to say yes. And then I would also go a step farther. If you don't get it, 48 hours later, you should be calling the listing agent back. Attorney review has started, and if that buyer's a jerk, this is the point they're starting to find out. We've had 2 deals come through that were in attorney review. We were just nicer and had our stuff together. They dropped the offer, they took and went with ours. So no only means no the first time. If you let it, follow up.
Good advice.
Follow up.
Good advice.
Can I ask a question, Ron? Yes. I'm so mesmerized by what this guy's put on the board in this market, and especially that it's 90-something% buyers. So when are you, and the phone rang, and now my brain just lost. But what I wanted to say, when are you, I'm really searching for what I was going to ask you.
How do I not quit?
Yes, when do you not give, that's exactly what I was gonna ask. When do you not give up on the buyer, right? So everyone gets, I don't know, if you're having a team, you get a bunch of leads and you have to qualify those leads. what does that process look like for you? Like, let's just say that Zohar gets a lead from Zillow, okay, or it comes in from the team, and now it's in your inbox, and you have to, what's your hunt look like? How do you hunt down that buyer?
It's definitely a system. It's always the same. It doesn't matter what the lead is. Initial contact is always that initial phone conversation. It's a pre-qual conversation. By all means, I'm using pre-qualification script to know how much time, energy, and effort we're going to be spending on this person. Half of them, by the way, they have agents. They're working with agents. You have to get to that point. One of the major questions I ask is how long you've been looking. They're telling me I've been looking for 6 months, a year. Well, we're working with an agent. They're usually like, yeah. So you have to ask them the
Do
question.
you convert them? Do you ever?
No, I have plenty of leads. I don't need to step on other people's toes. And what you'll find is that if you're looking to have longevity and success in this business, you might not want to step on other agents' toes because you're going to come across those very same agents if you're working in the same neighborhoods. If somebody says, no, I'm working with that agent and I know them, you keep working with that agent, they're amazing. They can take good care of you. Like, I
love it.
so as soon as they say yes, boom, next. Many of them say, no, we're just looking online. We haven't seen any homes. We've just been to a few open houses. Nobody's representing us. Okay, so we'll take it. We'll schedule a meeting. The initial meeting is a buyer consultation. As Tom alluded to, it's not always in an office. Sometimes I call it on the go. Sometimes we're having the buyer consultation on the go, but I'm preparing them for that conversation also. I'm not just going to drop it on them. I'm going to tell them, okay, so while we're at the first house, we're going to discuss the buying process, speak about the market conditions, answering real estate related questions you have. Would that be okay? So I'm preparing them for that conversation. What does that sound like? That's the structure of a buyer consultation. So I'm not doing it in an office, which has its benefits. There's no distractions. They're more likely to comply, say yes to everything, compared to at a home when you're in the kitchen and talking about the attorney review. They are distracted. But, we'll talk to them about the inspection period in the backyard, and we're talking to them about the market conditions in the basement and so on. We're having that conversation. It goes a long way. It benefits them and us. So and not every buyer is worthy of the same amount of time, effort, and energy from my end. I have a strategy. I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm saying it's the one that works for me. I have a very large pipeline of leads of buyers that I work with. I go back to the 80-20 rule.
That's what it is.
All right. So
And it's leaving lower, right? And when you
yes.
think about it,
So-
unless you're a rock star.
Well, the top,
Leads.
let's just say, you take, okay, so out of 10 leads, the top 2, they're going to get the majority of my time. I'm going to be on top of them every single day. Now, the other 8 are different categories. It just depends where they are, but I'm always focusing on the ones that are ready to go.
You said daily, right? You'd be on top.
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah. If there's somebody that I'm going to show them a house, and 1 out of every 2 meetings, every meeting I'm showing them maybe 1 or 2 houses, but every meeting or 2, they're submitting an offer, I'm on top of them daily.
And that's so important because if you have an engaged buyer, they look daily. If you owe it to yourself, if you haven't done this, set up a search for yourself in a town that you love, and you see how many times that website will send to you. Do it on like a Redfin or a Zillow or a Realtor. Watch how many times that website engages you, even if a house is not in your criteria. It'll be like, well, this almost meets your criteria, and this almost. It's not because they think you should buy it. They do it to keep you engaged.
They'll say the next town over
Right.
is
This is similar.
Yes.
They do it to keep you engaged. And
Very
the
good
reason they know that is because when you're serious, right? You have the people who are 9 months out, 6 months out, 3 months out, but when you're really looking, you get a seller, they're like, oh my God, something just hit the market. It's an hour ago, 30 minutes ago, 30 seconds ago. Did you see it? That's how engaged they really are. And if you think it's okay to just send a search and call them once a week, someone else has already called them, right? They're gone. You lost them.
I wanted to add something, because Ron said, don't step on other people's toes and this and that. If you just had a basic conversation of like, oh, did you see the house on, First Street or whatever? And people said no, and you just gave them value, like, well, how come my realtor didn't send me that property or whatever? If you know the market, or if that's why I was always pushing for the listen up for listings. If you could give, there's a listing in my office coming up next week in the town. If you have a search for a certain town, I know it's coming up. They're like, wow, how do you know that? talk to my agents in my office, and it's gonna be coming up, you know, like the first page, it's not inside information, but that's gonna be something that not Coldwell Banker, Remax, anybody else is gonna know, because it's kind of like, we're a big office, you know, we have a lot of people with a lot of listings. And if you can provide something like, wow, they're getting listings before they're hitting the market, they might work with you rather than the fly-by-night person they met at open house. You know, another thing I wanted to point out was listings are scarce, right? There's something right on MLS, it's called office exclusives, okay? Everybody has them. There's a list of not cooperating, but there's also a whole bunch that will cooperate, okay? It's right under toolkit. So you go toolkit, forms and documents, office exclusives. There's a whole list right here. There's 30 of them, or I think it's 23, I count.
We don't have it in New York.
I'm sorry, it's on NJMLS.
Yeah. I wish we had it.
So
We should have it.
they're exclusive, but they will cooperate. So all you have to do, like if you have someone in Paramus for 850, okay? Call the guy up, say it's not on MLS, but maybe it's another angle to show your buyer value where I'm gonna work with them, but they showed me stuff you didn't, buyer agent B didn't show me. So now they'll work with you as opposed to them. I'm not saying step on toes, everybody's a great agent, but if you add value where someone might not have, now they're gonna work with you.
And picking up on that, if you haven't done this, just it's not in our habit, but if you're searching actively and you don't have a coming soon box checked on your search, you're also doing a disservice, right? Because those coming soons go on to Zillow and your client asks you, how come you didn't send it to me? And now you're like, oh, I didn't check that box for coming soon. Another thing that you should be doing is you set up your search. Like when we do our commercial listings, we have like, we set up a search on MLS, we do LoopNet, we do CoStar. When you're setting up a search for a residential property, you should do your coming soons, your actives, and then you should go on, I'm saying that we do it, but you should go on and set up your for sale by owner searches on all the other websites, right? Have your profiles on Realtor, Zillow, and whatever the heck, Redfin or whatever, and set up that for sale by owner search. Believe it or not, those people cooperate with buyer agents. Not all of them, but there are some people. And we're getting phone calls for those properties, right? Oh, I was like, oh, I didn't see this one.
Their numbers right on all the sites. You could just text them and say, you guys cooperating with the broker for your buyer. Most of them would.
Yeah, if you don't have it set up, you're just missing an opportunity. And trust me, that seller who's a for sale by owner is not getting the same activity as the property down the street that's on the market. So you can also have a better shot.
Okay. I have a question, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor. Escalation clauses. Are you using them? Talk about them. How do you use it?
I don't like to use it.
Really, I do.
I think there's a time and a place for everything, so, yeah.
Escalation clauses. Do you use an escalation clause that, hey, my buyer will go?
As a listing agent, when you get an escalation clause, it's like a $50,000 difference. Do you think the guy is serious? Or he just doesn't want to lose it, so he wants to see which number he needs to be at to come back?
Is this to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they don't want to lose it. I get them all the time. Where it becomes a problem is when you have multiple escalation clauses. A lot of the times that's what's been happening. So in Jersey, they do less and less of that, but where we are.
Don't you think the agent just wants to know which number the buyer needs to be, and then they'll say yes or no?
No,
No, you're committed. You can't.
I think that's
you
my
can't
job.
Take it back.
and it's my job as a
But
listing
it's-
agent though.
Because it's just a written paper, so many markets fall apart, right? In
So
our
let me
market.
tell you, in the last 2 months, I've had 2 agents win with escalation clauses. What I don't like, if I see $1,000 escalation clause, you won't. You just don't win for me. That's just
And
what I am.
5,000,
Yeah,
5,000.
I'm looking for 5 or 10,000 on an escalation. If you want to win and you don't want to give your best number because you're afraid, right?
Overpay.
Right? Yeah. That for $1,000, even 2,500, I'm like, they went out. They came in low. And if you start your initial offer low for me with an escalation, that drives me crazy as a listing agent. Like, I'm sure Ron goes in and he's like, no, we're winning this. We're going strong from the top. We're going to show we're committed to the number regardless, right? I get it. That is a concept that does win a lot. So let's just say I have a property on the market for $650 right now. We have 15 offers on it. Okay. Someone's throwing an escalation clause. Okay, but someone came in hardcore strong, like way over where I was expecting. That person is getting a preferential treatment from me because they set the standard for me to judge every other offer on. So yes, but when you get the escalation, you have to be clear in your definition. You have to say, Is there a cap on that escalation, right? Are you requiring proof of the offer that's below, right? And here's where this gets tricky is if you require proof and that person's a 50% down buyer or that person's a cash buyer, and they see that your highest offer is a 5% down buyer and they think you're gonna leverage their cash offer against your 5% down buyer, they may pull it out. They may pull the offer, but that's my job. My job is to qualify the deals. And if they pull out, I don't notify anyone until I qualify the escalation clause. And then we go through. And sometimes it takes a day. Like people call you an hour after the bids are due. What do you think? 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 What am I thinking? I have to qualify everyone. That's the part of it. So be mindful of that as well as buyer agents, that there is a qualifying process to your offers.
Okay,
I think you have to also feel out the listing, Jim. Not everybody, and this is a compliment, is at JP's skill set on the listing side of the table. And as a buyer's agent, you need to know, this is gonna sound terrible, when you have someone that maybe does not know their way through the woods. And if that is,
nicely put.
And they don't understand.
and they
Yeah.
don't, so again, it's as important, I think, in knowing the market as it is to know who the listing agent is. There are listing agents we talk about by first name, though, when we see the listing, we're like, ah. And then there are others, well, right.
And to Ron's point, they keep coming back.
They do, but you have to know a little more, and you've got to know them to know, is an acceleration clause here worthwhile? Is this a property that, back on markets, it's seller trauma. You had a seller who thought, I refer to it as getting jilted at the altar, like you thought you were getting married and the buyer left. So know how to take advantage of that. Like sometimes the seller doesn't want to go back to highest and best. They're emotionally exhausted. Their agent is tired. Hit them with an offer. That's easy to say yes to, but I think in order to know what to put in and what not to put in, you've got to try to find out something about the agent and the situation.
Which requires the conversation
It
you have
does,
all
absolutely.
alluded to.
Ron,
Which
what's
is
your
excellent.
concept behind not using them?
So I don't have to use them because I make the phone call, and I know my market. So the agents, the buyer's agents, and the buyers that tend to use them have no idea where this is going to. That's why they use it.
I agree with that.
That's why they use it, because I have no idea how high this is gonna go. It's too crazy. I don't know. So pick up the phone. You'll discover some information that might benefit you. Also, you have to know when not to use them. To JP's point, if you're up against a cash offer and you're 5% down, yeah, $1,000 over is not gonna help anybody. Also, a lot of sellers and listing agents don't like it. Don't like to see
I
it.
feel like it's playing games.
Well,
Some people, yeah.
well, I can see why a seller might be annoyed. Basically, what happens is, let's just say theoretically,
It's like you're a smartass.
yeah, well, they put an escalation clause up to 720, but they're only paying 690. So they were willing to pay more, but they're only paying this much. So I see why a seller might be annoyed on it, but I don't use them. While I've used them in the past, I don't like to use them. We tend to just come in strong and clean based on the information that we know, on the knowledge that we have.
I like that. I would just say if you are going to use it though, I always offer an explanation on an escalation clause because some people don't understand them.
Yeah.
More importantly, the seller doesn't understand them. And so rather than trust that the agent presents it properly, what we typically do is say, we're offering 675 with an escalation up to 700 to further explain. Should another offer come in at 685, we would be paying 690. Should it come in at 695, we'll be paying 700. But our limit is at 700. Yeah, it's 3 sentences, but it certainly helps to explain it to the seller when the offer is presented. And then when you do that, make sure that you include that language in the actual email, the body of the email, and in your notes in the offer. Because a lot of times people don't see it in the contract. If you're putting it in the notes section at the end, you want to make sure that you lead with the email and you follow up with the listing agent to say, I just want to be aware that you read the email. We include an escalation clause language in it. Those are ways you can get around confusion.
So I think we covered that topic extensively.
Yes, and I will tell you another topic we haven't discovered or talked about is air conditioning. It is 2022 and it is hot in here, okay? The thermostat we can lower, my goodness.
So I think this panel obviously is very advanced, very skilled. You know,
Here.
what I would say is I do see a handful of agents that are out there that are watching this, that are maybe 1 to 3 years in or first year in, or doing less than 10 buy-side deals a year. You don't always get the opportunity to work with the A buyers. We've given a lot of advice on the panel of pre-qual, get your A buyers, win the deals, right? Well, what happens when you need a paycheck? What happens when you got to put food on the table? What happens when you're in arrears on credit card payments? Right? What happens when that life scenario is staring at you? And all of a sudden, someone comes in and says, hey, I'm a low money down loan. I need to get this deal done, right? And I've been there, and I know what it's like, and I've won. Okay, so what I'll tell the new buyers out there, work with it, show them why you're the best, kill them with service. Okay, if you're going into multiple bid offers, if they're not the strength and you're losing, maybe don't show them those 8 properties. Okay, but come with your skill set, right? Maybe bring in a contractor that can help them do a remodel. Maybe bring in some advice on how to rechange the property, repurpose it. Maybe show them a 2-bedroom instead of a 3-bedroom, right? Give them some ideas, be different, and know where you can win. And I'd also tell you, you know, don't be afraid that if they love a neighborhood, okay, and you've all been in it, you show that A house, oh, I love this house, Mike, I gotta buy this. And you know, as the agent, you're like, I'm screwed, right?
Like, there's no way.
There's no way, okay? There is that, odds are in Bergen County, there's that exact same house within a 3-block radius. Go find it and let them know and do an off-market deal. I've done that many times. You know, you can run a block that way, right? How many times have it happened to as a listing agent? All of a sudden, you're like, how'd that person sell that house, right? You got to work harder. And if you're not working harder, right, what's your advantage? Show them that you can. And there's a lot of training that we have on that as well. So
I think something that Tom mentioned, JP mentioned, Chris mentioned, Mike mentioned, they all mentioned something. I'm just gonna ask, you know, increase your awareness level around it with the question, what does it cost to hire a buyer's agent?
$0.
So if you propose them, listen, the price is $0, you can hire an expert, an amateur, somebody that provides you a wealth of value, someone that doesn't provide you any or less value. Who would you choose to represent you? Because expertise is value proposition. Being strategic is value proposition. Hustling is value proposition. Going for the off-market exclusives, coming soon, talking to your peers is value proposition. Having a solid vendor network is value proposition. The challenge that a buyer's agent has, they have difficulty in communicating their value proposition. It's not that they don't know their value proposition. So if you can communicate at a very high level, you will convert your buyers at a very high level. And if you go the extra mile, you go above and beyond.
She get the coaching now.
Yes.
We've been at this an hour, and in the interest of time, does anyone have a question for our panel?
I have
Q&A.
a comment, can I?
Of course.
I think it's a little bit of what you all said, and for me, these are the 2 biggest things I've learned from Chris. The 2% or the 20% that deserve your time are not the ones, this is something I always thought, are not the ones with the biggest budget. They're the ones that their finances really check out on every level. It can be much cheaper or smaller budget, but they really are solid. This is one thing. And the other thing, I don't know how it is in New York, but I find that if you really know your market, you can advise your buyer, when do they put just a higher number? And I went with numbers that were ridiculously above and we lost. Or when do you put the brakes a little bit because the appraiser is not going to come to that point and ask them to put whatever they have towards an appraisal shortfall. So that's part of knowing your market and
your buyer.
And of course,
Buyers,
and
buyers.
these are, I find these are game changers when working with buyers in this market.
Oh, good advice.
When you
What's
have
your
a
question?
deadline,
You have a what?
when
Yeah,
you have
deadline.
a deadline relating kind of to your concern, what is the best time would you say to submit that best offer? I know it's a deadline by that
Highest and
time.
best. Yep,
but
they
What
know.
would you recommend?
I'll just say what
I would like
I,
to know what your opinion on that.
I wait till the last possible minute.
So do I.
5 minutes
So do I.
before.
I don't wanna give
So
the
when
listing
you
agent any
lost-
more leverage than they already have on it, so. I
What
would
he
wait
just said
until
is
the
the
last-
real deal.
the last,
Okay, a lot of
Half
people
hour.
just say, I want to get it out because I know I'm gonna be with my kids later and I'm not gonna make.
whatever excuse you're gonna make up.
You could
just say-
schedule your email to send.
All the time.
I-
I sent the number while we're sitting here.
I love it.
If that's
I
send
love
it.
I'll tell you because I will leverage you.
And what happens when you send it after, let's say, like, you know, like, after the deadline, and you really come strong, so would you still consider those?
I do.
offers?
I'm
Oh my
a
God,
nice
by
agent
law, you
though. I
have
will
to.
tell you,
Yeah.
there
By law,
are,
you have to.
Yeah. but
She's
the
asking
agent-
because you have some agents, non-agent agreements, and.
let
I
me
would-
tell you something.
Yeah.
She's absolutely right. I mean, if you're doing the right thing for your seller, you're always submitting. And if you're guiding your seller to say, well, they missed the deadline,
5:03.
honestly, that's amateur hour for me. But by submitting it too early, to me means, I'll forget about it, it's not really important, I just want to get it in.
One of these.
And then, here's my offer and,
Yeah.
and let me know what you think. It's really bad because trust me, you will be leveraged out.
Yes.
So someone else will pick up the phone 15 minutes before that deadline is due and say, where do I need to be?
That's what we usually do, but.
But I would say you have poor time management skills if you can't, like, either pick up the phone, and tell them, listen, I'm in a car wreck, and I'm gonna send it as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just late, I'm like, already late, like, they're gonna be problems with, they're gonna be late with inspection and crazy, I would like,
But you know what?
But if you're
happens,
100
you
over,
send
then
an
you're-
offer, and
you're
then
good to
somebody
go.
lost, and then, you know, you get another person that's like excited and just, you know, you wanna resubmit your offer and.
Do it,
yeah,
do
just
it. We've
say,
done it where we've lost and we said, you know what?
Just go, yeah.
I've been burned with it. Go send another one in.
Yeah.
And a
Have to
deadline,
think of sending another one.
a deadline is artificial. And the real estate commission does not look upon it favorably. So that you have the law on your side if you want to submit an offer after that artificial deadline.
That's
We all
because-
like to establish a level playing field, just so that we have some predictability and chaos.
Right, exactly. A
Understand.
little chaos, a little anxiety.
Yeah, I mentioned in the team meeting, there's a two-part event with the board to Patty's point. There's a lot that's out of control in multiple offers. There is a lot of focus coming on it. So there's
Maybe
definitely,
they're beeful.
yeah, the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do. It's all intended to kind of bring better harmony, I think, to the market, but it is getting a little wild west out there.
Okay.
What's your question?
I have a question. So what kind of advice would you give to a buyer that you've been working with for maybe like a year now? Who basically lost the last round, so now they're renting, and now their budget is even less, but they
Sure.
still want to look at the houses that they were looking at before. Do you advise them to say, hey, we can't look at houses in that range? We have to look 100K less. Like, how do you have that really blunt conversation that we have to look 100K below? It's just, this has been a year. What kind of dialogue?
I mean,
do
I
you
would,
have?
I would tell you, why does it have to come from you initially?
Yeah.
You know, leverage your lender,
Mhm.
leverage the market, show them the sold comps, show them the variation of what's been selling versus what's been listed. Rate the properties A, B, C. If you want to go after C-level properties, they're on the market for 3 weeks, so start looking at properties once they're on the market for 3 weeks, if there are any.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, what's gonna happen if we don't accomplish that goal? Are they willing to go the extra mile?
The KW app, by the way, you can set it to search properties that have had price reductions in the last 7 days.
Same with the MLS and
Mhm.
yeah, I liken this both on to your question and also in the beginning. Something I call the Goldilocks rule. First appointment with the buyer, I'll always show them the house that's sort of below what they're looking for, or close to what they're looking for, and then really what they're looking for in the price. And for those old buyers, it's that on steroids, because now I'm going to show you what you can afford. And you're going to tell me, are we moving forward?
I used to do that in the beginning. I like that concept, you know,
Goldilocks.
below,
Exactly.
real and above, right? That's actually very effective. We were talking with someone before the class about that. Property brothers do it all the time, right? This is what you want. Oh, this is 300,000 above your budget. You know what I mean? We have
That's
to
right.
get real.
Right.
There's a book called Crucial Conversations, and I would encourage you to read it. It's a very easy read, a little redundant, but it tells you it walks you through these types of moments. And a crucial conversation is when it's uncomfortable for you to approach a subject. And do you have the skill set to have that conversation without offending the person that you're talking to, right? And it's a gift, right? It's an art that you actually work at, because they use it, they liken it to they're in a boardroom and they're having a manager's meeting, and the sales manager was told the previous week to tell the salespeople that we're cutting our budget to go out and get clients by 50%. But you've got to do the same numbers. And in the same week, the president of the company who gave that instruction to the sales manager decides to renovate their office and do a $100,000 renovation within the office. And it's a bad look, because the salespeople just realize that you're cutting their opportunity to earn, and yet you're overspending on your office because you want to feel good about it. How you have that conversation with the person above you will determine whether you A, keep your job, B, look like a hero to your salespeople and your other managers, right? And so they walk you through the process of how to navigate a conversation like that. And if you have been uncomfortable having the hard conversation, then you should role play it. You need to role play it with someone and say, all right, what if they say this? What if they say that? How can I do this without being offensive? And work on it. That's
What's the name of this book again?
Crucial Conversations, a very easy read, but really good for any kind of salesperson.
Crucial, not fierce.
No, it's not Dr. Seuss.
Easy read, redundant.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Wow, you guys did a great job. You did a fabulous job. And there, I feel as if there's so much more we're not tapping into. But I thank you so much.
Save it for next one.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. They may tap you